if your safety manager gets hit by a bus and isn't in the plant tomorrow, the system keeps running. And so the new way I have to remind myself is the safety manager has won the lottery and now they're living their best life somewhere else.
This is Facility Rockstars, the podcast that celebrates the unsung heroes of our daily lives, facility professionals. I'm your host, Jay Colbert. Join me as we honor these great leaders, sharing stories, insights, and expertise that empower us all to learn and grow together. Facility Rockstars is sponsored by Collutus, operating the way you operate in order to make your life easier. Welcome back to Facility Rockstars. I'm your host, Jay Colbert. Today's guest is someone who has spent her career at the intersection of safety, systems thinking, and real-world manufacturing. I'm especially excited to talk with her because she brings a rare blend of hands-on industry experience and academic leadership, having not only practiced EHS on the factory floor, but also shaped the next generation of professionals in the classroom. She is a former professor in occupational safety, health, and applied sciences, and she's a systems builder driving global consistency and impact in safety training. She is the Senior Manager, EHS Training and Management Systems, Stanley Black & Decker. Colleen Walker, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Jay. Really, really excited to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you for investing your time. I know every day is kind of back to back, and I really appreciate you taking the time with us today.
Of course. Thank you.
So, Colleen, I'm going to start with this, right? With everything we just ran through in your intro, and impressive, by the way, if you were to pick one thing, what's been your biggest lesson learned along your journey?
So this is honestly a tricky question, and I'm going to think outside of EHS as I answer it. The answer is the only constant is change. And I think that's something that we can all kind of think about and understand. Life and everything in it is subject to transformation, and how you adapt, how you are flexible, how you approach that is just so key to, I think, like my own overall well-being, but just life, in general. So constant change. And somebody told me this on my very first day at my first job outside of college. And I didn't really understand it at the time, but now looking back, I'm like, you know what? It is so true. And I don't think we think about that enough sometimes.
I think that's fantastic. And it's definitely the first time someone in over 100 shows here has answered the question that way.
Really? Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I love your answer. I see this so true. Could you I'd like to expand on this a little bit more before we talk about anything else. How would you apply this to your journey, and how did you embrace this concept?
Okay. So if I go back to the beginning, as I mentioned, my very first day, very first job out of college, my manager who had hired me, who I was interviewed with, expected to work for, looking forward to working for, was not there that day. And
Mm.
so the whole team was trying to figure out, what do we do with this new person? We planned for her to start. The manager was supposed to guide her through all of those first day, first week activities. And so I think that was kind of the first, piece of it. And like I said, somebody mentioned it to me that day. And at the time I'm like, okay, well, I don't know. Things happen. Let's figure it out. But since then, I've also embraced change. And so when I had the opportunity to move out of being in the manufacturing environment into teaching, that was one of those other cases where it's like, is this something that I want to do? Does this fit for me? How do I see myself fitting into this new role? Still focusing on safety, which is ultimately my passion and interest, but monumental change. And to jump into that, not be afraid of it, not to say I'm going to, be in my comfort zone. It's okay here. I know what I'm doing. I like what I'm doing. But to embrace that now has helped me be even better at what I'm doing today from that time teaching. And so outside of the work environment, I think about it too. We just had some beautiful, nice, warm spring weather. And it's something that also reminds me of change. And I'm so grateful to be in New England because we get to experience all the seasons. And how do you embrace winter versus summer? And I think if you ask me what's my favorite season, I wouldn't have a great answer because there's different things to enjoy about each of them. And so that's the piece of how do you embrace where you're at now and are open to the opportunities and things that might be coming in the future that you either plan for or maybe don't plan for.
Mm. Your, I would say your ability to pivot and your view on change is admirable. The saying like people resist change or nobody likes change. Well, it sounds like you do, and you've learned how to work with it. And that's I would consider that to be a superpower. So,
A
mm,
superpower, yes. I can say it's not easy, and there's times where I'm definitely shook and, "Oh my gosh, do we really have to pivot?" And I wasn't expecting this, but to change your thinking on it is so, so, so critical because we can all spend that time in the negative or the doom and gloom, but let's pivot the thinking and let's see how this can become an advantage, and like you said, put it in your pocket as a superpower. I think it'll transform a lot.
definitely. So you just said change your thinking. That's not an easy thing for many people to do either.
No,
Is so
no.
can you so is that a stepping outside of the current situation or outside of your current lens? Can you tell us what you mean by that?
So, what comes to mind when you say that is I think I take the kind of approach or the kind of the life philosophy that no isn't the first answer, or I disagree, or don't shut something down before you can think about it. And so, where do you put on those shoes? How can you step into that other situation? Where can you find out where is that coming from? How can I learn about it a little bit more? And then all of a sudden, the door that seemed so closed and so distant from you personally, you can kind of start to see, oh, maybe that perspective makes sense. And maybe it's not for me, but I can understand at least where it's coming from. And then again, you have that chance to think back for yourself, make your own decision of
Mm.
how you respond or react to, any of the things that we could be talking about here.
Awesome. Thank you for expanding on that. So, hey, we're still on the first question. This is great.
Amazing.
A lot to talk about.
Yes.
So, with your background in EH&S, both educating it, executing it, um, can you tell us about management systems surrounding EH&S in your experience? What do these look like? What are their functionalities? How do they work with each other?
So to start with kind of a foundation, you mentioned systems thinking at the beginning. This is exactly that. It's the process that puts together how all the things come together and operate. So there's loads of components to it. Everything from leadership, commitment, and support to setting your goals and expectations for both yourself and others. Also leading into training, performance evaluation. How do you continuously improve? And I'm thinking here about a student who told me this was a really negative way to explain this, and I've started to switch it, but I'll tell you both. The negative way is if your safety manager gets hit by a bus and isn't in the plant tomorrow, the system keeps running. And so the new way I have to remind myself is the safety manager has won the lottery and now they're living their best life somewhere else. But again, the plant and the operations and the things that were going on all still need to continue without that single person or that single team. And that's what management systems offers you.
Mm, outstanding. Can you tell us a time when, oh, maybe those systems somehow failed you or there was a challenge involved, right? And how did you, to your point of embracing change, how did you pivot? How did you work with that?
Yeah, sure. Management systems as a whole is not an easy process. It's something that you have to deliberately put time into. And so the challenge surrounding that is losing sight of that big picture. And if I put myself back into the shoes of that site EHS manager, you're putting out fires every day, maybe literally and also figuratively. There's stuff that pops up. And you and I were just talking about being back to back. What are all those things that have come up that are back to back that are pulling you away from
Mhm.
your system or away from the things that you had planned from the bigger picture? And so kind of the thought here is, does the important suffer at the expense of the urgent? And so
Mm,
where does that come into how you do what you do? Do you come in every day running around, putting out those fires? Because you can spend full-time jobs doing that, but you're not moving the needle into that sustainable process that is truly a management system. And that is incredibly difficult for companies of all sizes and all complexities. And maintaining that focus, I just think is really, really important. And so I don't have a beautiful answer of how to combat it, but it's just something to keep in mind for yourself personally, as you're fighting those fires. And what can I do to prevent this next fire from happening so that that situation doesn't disrupt my day or my week or my plan for this?
appreciate you expanding on that. And I want to go back to, again, a lot of what you're saying. I want to go back to some of this because the important versus urgent, it's so universally true. Like, so often people don't have the discipline or the wherewithal or whatever it might be to keep the urgent at bay because what they're doing at that time is more important.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's a really good point. Now, is that a cultural thing for you? And do you have team members that take longer to realize, like, how do you manage that? How do you
Yeah.
lead that?
Yeah, uh I mean, it's definitely a challenge. Again, a challenge for all levels, all different types of organizations. I think that some people really embrace that urgency. They really embrace jumping from thing to thing to thing, and they work well that way. And I think part of that is knowing yourself. And so, what industry or what role fits better for you? If you would prefer to spend your time a little more planned, a little more systematic, a little more scheduled and structured, you have to also set that stage with your peers. And so, if you're the person that somebody's going to, and I'm just thinking about my own life currently, um, somebody in my team, we said uh, across the board, they are the flowchart guy. And so I went to him and said, "Hey, I heard you're the flowchart guy. Can you help me create this flowchart?" And he was like, "Oh my gosh, how did this happen? I can't believe it. I just made one great flowchart one time, and now all of a sudden everybody's coming to me." And that could be some of those things that pull you away from the bigger picture. All of a sudden, you have this urgent request because you maybe allowed that role to sustain, and that's also a really tricky thing to kind of manage with your team, especially, managing with your manager, but, um, again, noticing it, I think, is the first step to it, and then figuring out, "How can I address this, and how do I step away, or how do I change those types of interactions?"
Mm, fantastic. Flowchart guy. Did he take that as a compliment or
He
it
was
doesn't
not
sound like he
happy,
did.
no.
No. Mm-mm.
That
I'm
was
so
not
much
what he wanted to
more.
be doing. Yes, exactly.
It's
Yeah.
hysterical. So I know safety is a big foundational thing for you, and that's huge. I mean, safety is important across every spectrum, in my opinion. Can you talk to us about safety training and specifically, kind of drive us towards how do you achieve the intended outcomes of safety training?
Yeah, safety training is, really important to me personally. It's one of the things that I think we do often as a check the box. I have to do this, a regulation requires it, my company requires this many meetings per year. There's lots of reasons why you might be asked to do it. But the piece that's so critical is that training is intended to educate so that people can make better or different decisions when they encounter a hazard or a risk
Mm,
personally. And so that transfer of knowledge for me is the piece that I don't think we spend enough time focusing on. And so what kind of back to the systems thinking and having the time for it, the one of the ways that you can do this is to start before you even get into your content or how you're going to deliver it or what you need to do. Think about, who is my audience? Are these people who are very tech savvy and they would love to have some type of quiz like on their phone that they could answer during the training? Or are these people who would prefer something more interactive in terms of a discussion, or maybe they write something on paper as their notes to remember things or come back to it? Who is your audience? What is that persona? And then you can gear your content, your training to that person so that they will be most likely to be able to apply that learning on the job sometime later whenever it comes up. It's, again, not intended to check the box. I got your signature. You were
mhm.
here. That's great. I always used to tell the students, I can see your eyeballs here in the classroom, but that doesn't mean you're absorbing, all of the things that we're saying, that you'd be able to do something with it in the future. So thinking about, who do you have, and then applying, what are you trying to teach them and what do they need to do with it to make your plan for the training.
So you probably can tell that I've been taking notes here, and I think that the fact that I have to go back to them here. Transfer of knowledge, huge. But even bigger for me, what you brought up is such a high level of awareness of the audience, and everybody learns differently. And you're touching upon something that I think is so often missed. I'm the expert in the room, and no offense to anyone, right? But they may not be reading their room properly.
Yes.
And that's what you're explaining, which I absolutely love because it won't land or it won't be sustainable or they won't know how to execute it because maybe they were a visual learner, but This other person is a flowchart guy
Yes.
or whatever the case may be. Right.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
good
Yeah.
stuff. Great content.
And I just want to add here, I want to recognize that it's not easy, right? To spend the time to do that. And I'm again putting myself back in the shoes of the site manager. You might think you have no time for that because you're running around fighting those fires, right? You're doing the urgent all the time. So how would I possibly build this into my day? And so I just want to acknowledge it's not easy. This is like an ongoing transformation that you have to kind of deliberately do and build out that time in order to move the needle in this direction.
That's an important acknowledgement. I appreciate you bringing us right back to that. That's awesome. So how do you and your team actually leverage technology, whether that be AI management platforms, any of the above, or something totally different?
Yeah, so currently, in my role, the use of technology is paramount to our conversations. Where can we integrate it? How can we apply it? Where does it help us not only be more efficient with our time, but how does it help us do what we do better? So, a couple different examples I can think of right off the bat. One is we are thinking about using technology, using AI specifically, to help our teams ensure that they're doing good, accurate, and sustainable root cause analysis. So we've developed a prompt for them where if you're not an AI user, you might not know exactly how to get AI to do what you need to do. But we've developed a prompt where they can copy and paste this language into the AI tool, copy and paste your 5Y into the AI tool, and it will double check you. It will say, yep, I think you're on the right track to the true root cause, or maybe you've missed this, or have you considered that, or maybe this is a direct cause. Maybe it's something that could help the situation, but it's not going to truly prevent that incident from happening ever again. And so that's one of the things that I think is really cool that is newer in terms of using AI, like kind of across the board and integrating that into how we do root cause analysis. The other side of it from technology is through training. So we're on Zoom right now. There's all sorts of things that we can do to add engagement to sessions that happen on the computer or like web-based or virtual. And the really cool ones, I love Mentimeter is one that's right off the bat. You can do polls, you can do word clouds, you can do all sorts of things that, again, are integrated right into what you're doing. And long gone are the days of just asking a question out into a room, a sea of faces on your computer screen and having no responses when everybody can just quickly click a button and engage, and then you can respond accurately. You can use it as knowledge checks, like throughout a training. Are we on the right track? Do you actually know? You're nodding along, but like, do we really understand? Let's take this quick one question quiz to see. And then the instructor will then see, oh yeah, we're more than 50% got the answer right. We can carry on, or let's double check and make sure that we're covering what we need to do before we continue into the next segment of the training.
Hey, rock stars. If you're tuning into the podcast and are feeling overwhelmed by all the maintenance demands at your facility, don't stress. We've got you covered. Our sponsor, Collutus, is your go-to partner to help you tackle all those demands and get them done right, on time, and with top-notch quality. From project planning to execution, Collutus is there to make hard work easy. Visit collutus.com today to get started. So the two examples you just gave are so huge in my view, because with like AI, let's jump back to that for a minute.
Yeah.
If someone doesn't use AI every day or a chatbot or whatever they're not doing with it, you created what I heard you say is you created an easy way for them to engage with the technology by giving them a prompt.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's brilliant. Simple and brilliant.
Yes.
Have you seen it work? Are they using it?
We are just on the cusp of rolling it out.
Okay.
So we haven't used it too broadly yet. But it's kind of back to that idea of the firefighting. Who's our AI expert? Who's our 5Y expert? How many questions did those people get individually before we've created a system now that we can roll out and people can use this on their own time and their own, their own needs to then move on to the next step. So I'm very excited for it. I hope to report back with thrilling success, but more to come.
That's
on that.
awesome. All right, then you have to come back for another episode. But after you've rolled it out, we're going to test it. All right.
Okay.
And we want to hear back. Because, well, quite frankly, I'm sure our listeners want to hear, okay, you did that. Now, how did
Hmm.
it go? Right?
Right,
How did it
right.
actually roll out?
Yeah.
The other thing you mentioned, which I also love, is you pointed out, here we are on Zoom. And as you said, people are nodding their heads. I was nodding my head, right? I'm thinking to myself, well, yeah, I'm right here with you. But I like the fact that you create engagement through a simple click or, hey, here's a quick poll. Here's one question, and one word answer that I need from you, or anything to get that engagement in a meeting. Brilliant. Very good. What do you love most about your job and why?
So what I love most is the people. The people has actually always been the answer, regardless of what role I'm in. And kind of the passion of that comes differently, but the passion is helping people, right? Maybe my direct coworkers or maybe the people at the plant that I was working at, helping them get to retirement and do all the great things that we work so hard to achieve. And so that's kind of the passion behind the safety piece of it. And so along the way, learning what do you love to do outside of work? How did you celebrate, whatever thing this weekend, or what are the upcoming things that you're looking forward to? And so having those connections, but then using that to further the safety messaging, the EHS messaging, the reason why it's so important to do all of those things, because I think we can agree it's maybe boring, it's compliance driven, right? There's lots of reasons behind it, but if we can hit that people side of it, and so genuinely getting to know my coworkers and genuinely supporting the teams that I work with to help us kind of maintain that balance and get into the next phase of our lives healthfully and happily is the thing that I love the most.
Very good. Yeah, we can't do it up without our teams and
Mhm,
truly understanding who they are. I'm accused of being too much of a people person sometimes. So, but I get what you're saying. It's
mhm.
really important. It's
Yeah,
really important.
yeah.
Um, how about change management? What's your experience with change management? How do you implement it? And what successes and what challenges have you seen with it? Because this is, in my experience, this is not an easy topic.
No, not at all. And I can think of like a couple different ways to think about it. So if I go back to my facility time, change management might look like we are getting a new piece of equipment. How do we manage this? What are the things that might be involved with this? What types of trainings, machine guarding, right? There's all sorts of things that you need to put into place. And I think back to the point at the beginning, the firefighting, if you don't have the time to think about that, let's get it here and then we'll figure it out after. That can lead you into, honestly, a world of trouble, for all sorts of different things. So the change management, challenges, I can think about times in the past where we've had engineers order equipment and it's come in the wrong voltage. Like, it would work for a European system, but not in the US system, and now everybody's standing around, "We need this to run right now. What do we do to get there?" And, they're looking at safety, like, "Can we get into the inner workings of this machine? Is it okay? Are we gonna be hurt, or is there anything electrical involved?" And you have to look at that and then again manage those pressures. We need this right
Mhm.
now. We ordered this for a reason. We're ready to go. And thinking about another scenario, an engineer came to me and said, "We've got this really big order. We didn't think that it was going to happen, and it happened. And so we need to do this really fast, and we need to do it so fast that we can't follow our management of change process." And they're in
Mm,
my office standing there, and I'm like, no, even more important that we have to think about these things ahead of time, or else you might find yourself in a sticky situation that you would rather not be in.
mm.
So there's checklists, there's all sorts of tools that, would support you in that way where you would go through different categories, electrical, working at heights, all the different kind of safety things where do any of these apply? Is this going to increase your water usage? Is this going to increase any hazardous waste? All sorts of things that, again, you would need to spend some time proactively ahead of time and think through yes or no, does this apply or not apply? Then you can spend the time to make a plan and put things in place. And maybe you don't have the perfect solution, but a temporary solution would be better than nothing,
Sure.
hoping for the best that nothing bad is going to happen. But again, you need that time and you need the commitment from whoever else is involved in the project to do that with you.
You just mentioned time. Great stuff. You just mentioned time. And do you find that there's a specific formula or timing, if you will, to communicate? Is it too early to communicate that a change is coming? Is it just right? Is it too late? Does this play into your process at all? Have you experienced that?
I'm smiling because this was some of the questions that I used to ask the students in the classroom. We would go through some different scenarios and say, do you communicate this to the plant? If not, why not? The plant is going to share the information anyway. So wouldn't you rather be ahead of it or, thinking about that? And I actually don't think that there's a single right answer to it. Um, some things definitely require some sensitivity for different reasons. Um, Generally, I'm on the board of being transparent, but you need to really balance that with what are the responses going to be? Do you have enough information to give them where it might not cause alarm, or you might be able to, support some of the concerns if it's something concerning? And it's kind of back to that thought that change is scary for a lot of people. Most often, even a good change can be different. And so, um, the communication aspect is really important, but I think the timing is relative to what the change is.
Excellent. Excellent. I agree. I think it's situational.
Mhm.
It's not all, and the sensitivity and confidentiality, sometimes there's a lot that can go into it.
Yeah.
Um, I want to jump back to the safety topic and a couple reasons, Colleen. We've been fortunate enough to have multiple amazing EHS safety professionals on the show so far, as I believe you know,
Yes.
and you being one of them, of course. And everyone has, well, I shouldn't say that. Many people have a different view on safety culture. What is safety culture? What does it mean? How do you develop it? How do you maintain it? So what's your safety culture? And I know you might have touched a little bit on it, but what is the safety culture like for you and your team?
Yeah, the boiled down safety culture, I think, is similar to what we might think for integrity or quality or some other topics, but kind of the idea of what are you doing when nobody's watching? What are those things that I might be a lone worker, my boss isn't around, what am I still going to do and put in place because it's the right thing to do or because I know that this is critical to my own personal life or safety. And it's not easy to build that, but I think it's back to understanding your audience, knowing your people, knowing what matters to them. I used to just love seeing all of the pictures on the toolboxes. Oh, tell me about your dog. Tell me about your motorcycle. What did you do this weekend on the four wheeler? And learning those things because when you can start to connect those pieces to why it matters, the shortcuts or the risks that you might think are worth it are not worth it. And we're all human. So I just had a conversation with my team this week, and we start each meeting with a safety moment. And somebody said, "Hey, does anybody have a safety moment to share?" And it was an example where uh, a safety manager almost stepped on a chair at their house to reach something instead of getting the ladder in the garage because it was just an extra amount of time to get there. And as the
I
story
hope that
went,
chair didn't have casters on it too.
she didn't mention that, I hope it didn't, but it was the cat that was looking at her that she thought, "This guy is staring at me, and if I fall off this chair and this cat is the one that's here." And so, again, it doesn't matter who's looking, but taking that extra second to say, "Is this exactly what I should be doing, or should I do something else, right now?" And I think that's what ultimately defines your culture. You can support it top down, but it's really defined by bottom up.
Got it.
What are people doing if, wherever they are?
Sure. Very well said. Very well said. I asked you about a challenge earlier on in the show, but I want to ask it a little bit, maybe a little bit differently. This might have to do with safety. It could have to do with anything. But I think a lot of these nuggets that have been shared over the episodes are helpful for myself and our listeners in terms of what didn't go right. And when it didn't go right, what did you do? Meaning, what's the biggest challenge you feel you and your team may have faced over the years? Um, it's kind of layered, right? So what was it? How did you get through it and resolve the issue or the occurrence? And then have you been able to put anything in place to hedge against that occurrence happening again in the future?
I think examples are always really memorable and really helpful, but I have to think about a scenario here. My mind is going towards a lockout tagout scenario I had pretty early on in my career. And the challenge was that our equipment was tied together in a way that it might have been electrically or otherwise driven from a couple of different points. So if you locked out one area, it didn't necessarily power down the whole machine. And so we were struggling with kind of back to the training. If you're sitting in a classroom and you be beat it into you, you have to do this and this and this and this in order to work on this machine safely. That might not be the way that somebody could learn and understand it. And safety is one of those spaces where we do not need to wait for an injury to learn from something or know that it's time to do something better. And so we were struggling with the lockout tagout piece of it and emphasizing procedures, emphasizing referencing documents. You can go up and look it up before you do it. But again, it's back to we've got a lot of things that we all need to do every day. So are we really going to spend the extra time to go look something up? Or I think I probably remember and I might just, go ahead and do it. But something like lockout tagout, where it literally could be your life or death, is no time to take that risk of wondering or hoping that I might do it right. So at the time, I was still pretty new in my career. And I think it's been an approach that I've had all along, but building these cross-functional teams, building people of different perspectives, different backgrounds, definitely including the workers who are actually the ones that are doing that work on the machine and saying what would be beneficial for you here. And ultimately what we did was we called it a visual lockout tagout. So every guard on the equipment had a sticker on it that said via color code, this is your electrical lockout, this is your water, this is your pneumatic. And it would tell them with a number that they could go find that number on the appropriate, disconnect point.
Mm.
And it was a monumental task. And this was, again, like really large equipment that, spanning large amount of space. And so to give that empowerment where then you have that visual indicator of, I'm going to go in this door right now. What do I need to do for it? Um, but again, it's back to the time, and I just can't emphasize enough that it's really hard to carve out that time when you're fighting the fires all the time. Where do you spend the time to have those meetings and do that? And I remember being with the team and putting the stickers on and is this sticker goes on this door. We cannot mess that part of it up. So let's be sure we're accurate all the way through. And the more that you built your systems, the more time that you have to spend thinking about these types of improvements and things that you can do to make everything a little bit smoother for your teams and ultimately back to getting home safe at the end of every day, going home to your families, getting to retirement, doing all the other fun things, in life.
Great example. Really good and so very relevant. I mean, how much current does a bus bar carry? It varies, of course, but yeah, whether it's a piece of equipment or something electrified or otherwise, it's so critical. So
Mhm.
critical. Yeah,
Yeah.
really good example.
Yeah.
Um, so I want to flip a little bit here with you, Colleen, because thank you, by the way. You've not only shared a lot, but you've taught us a lot and you've given us your own personal and team examples. And that's what the show's all about, right? Sharing your best practices and learning from each other. So thank you. And you mentioned something, so I'm going to take a little twist here. I want to, myself, and I'm sure everyone listening wants to learn a little bit more about you and like who's Colleen when she's not doing a lockout tagout training and talking about safety culture or educating people. But I want to take a little different twist today because you said when you walk around, you look at those toolboxes, you see the pictures on them, right?
Mhm.
So very short story for everyone here. I had a friend and colleague, former colleague, who said to me one day, he says, "Can you get this person engaged?" And I forget it doesn't matter who the person was. I said, "Oh, great. Well, what do you ask them about?" And he said, "Well, this is." I said, "Well, no offense, but it sounds a little bit like you're asking them about things that you care about.
Mhm.
Have you asked them anything about what they care about?"
Yeah.
And
Yep.
he's like, "Oh, yeah. Hmm." I said, "When we're not talking about work, what are you talking to me about?" He goes, "Oh, my 35-foot camper." I said, "Uh-huh. Every time."
Every
So,
time.
so I bring you to I said short story, keep it succinct. But now what that did for me, Colleen, is ask people, "Hey, what's your camper?" And of course, they have no idea what I'm talking about, right? But now I believe you do know what I'm talking about when I ask you that question. So what's your camper? What pushes you at the base of your back in the morning and just makes you alive?
If you asked me this a couple months ago, I would have said the New England Patriots. Big football fan, love following the season, love seeing the things that happen during the week. This year, especially, just so exciting to get to the Super Bowl despite the outcome and, all of that. But um, now, thinking, okay, so now we're entering spring, and I always have to remind myself this time of year, I do not want to wish away my summer looking forward to football coming back in the fall. So there has to be other things, along the way. So what's coming up for me really quick here is starting my vegetable garden. So I spend a
Oh,
lot of
cool.
time gardening in the summer. We start from seeds. So coming up pretty quick here. We already have garlic and onions planted from last fall. So looking forward to those building from that into this year. And then on the docket is always tomatoes, peppers, um, trying to think of some other things, but it's a whole thing to it. So everything from starting the seeds, getting it in the garden, and then preserving it. So tomato soup and eggplant. Are actually still eating eggplant from last summer, this current winter, because we've frozen
Oh,
it and
neat.
stored it over time. So that's really, really something I love to do.
Oh, that's so cool. And it's, like you said, from last year, you're still eating what
Right.
the yield
Yes.
was, right?
Yes.
The product. That's so cool. So if you want to talk to someone with a similar camper, I don't want to speak for him, but Gabe Buds was on the show quite a while back, Budds. He also has vegetable and fruit gardens, and he makes hot sauce from what he
Very
grows.
nice. Very
So I was like,
nice.
wow, that's a cool twist. So you guys will
Yes.
probably get along famously.
Sounds like it. Yes. Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, great information. It's super conversation. Thank you so much. Before we wrap up though, I'm sure people want to reach out to you, Colleen. It happens all the time. Like Colleen said this, I want to learn more. How should people reach out if they have more questions or want you to elaborate on something you talked about?
Yeah, absolutely. You can reach me on LinkedIn. So it's my first name, last name, Colleen Walker on LinkedIn. Or you can send me an email directly. It would be colleen.walker@sbdinc.com. And
Awesome.
looking forward to engaging. Absolutely.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you again for taking all your time today. I know it's a busy day for you, so really appreciate it.
Absolutely. You're welcome. And this was really fun. Thank you for having me.
I had fun too. Absolutely. Thank you for everyone who's listening. We always appreciate you engaging with us. You can catch the show at facilityrockstars.com or anywhere you get your podcasts. And thanks again. Great show. And we'll catch everyone next time. It's a wrap. Another episode of Facility Rockstars is in the books. Facility Rockstars is sponsored by Coludus, operating the way you operate in order to make your life easier. Until next time, facilitate and rock on.